Hi, this is Sean Perrin, and you're listening to episode 56 of the Clarineat podcast, the show where I discuss all that's new and neat with clarinet with the neatest people in the industry. In today's episode of the podcast, I discuss Uebel Clarinets and ESM Mouthpieces with Victoria and Andreas Moe of Moe-Bleichner Music Distribution. We're joined by Maryanne Lacaille, who is an Uebel and ESM artist and who was actually just featured on episode 55 of the podcast. If you enjoy our conversation today and want to learn more about Maryanne, I highly recommend heading back and checking out that interview. You'll learn about the differences today between Uebel models, how the clarinets are made, and what makes the ESM Heaven mouthpiece so unique and special. This episode was recorded on location with Maryanne in Seattle, Washington, and we were joined over Skype by Andreas and Victoria. I would like to thank Moe-Bleichner Music Distribution for making the studio interview possible. Before we get started this week, just a couple of housekeeping items. The first is I want to announce that Stanley Drucker has agreed to come on the podcast. Now, he, of course, is one of my all-time number one guests that I ever could even imagine to have on, so I'm super excited about this. I'd love it if you have any questions for him. Please send them along to feedback@clarinet.com. Another upcoming guest who I've actually mentioned last year, but we never got a chance to talk, was Florian Popa, who has invented some various ligature products and barrels and bells, and we'll be chatting soon on the podcast as well. And again, any listener questions for him, feedback@clarinet.com. That's the place to submit any and all questions that you have for these and other upcoming guests. The second thing I'd like to mention today is that the website has been completely redesigned from the ground up. It looks much more minimal, much more approachable, and it loads much, much faster on all devices and should load faster around the world. This is because I've added a service called a content delivery network, just because I realized that the podcast was being listened to in over 70 countries now, and generally servers are local, so load times in places like China, for example, I think were really, really slow, and this should help improve that. So if you've been to the website before and you found it was kind of slow and sluggish and unresponsive, this should have fixed that, and do let me know what you think if you get a chance to check it out. Of course, on the website, you'll find detailed show notes pages, links to purchase items discussed on the podcast. There's also very detailed product reviews, a blog, some videos, and an online store. So there's lots more to Clarinet than just this podcast. So do be sure to head on over to clarinet.com and check that out when you get a chance. This episode was brought to you by our sponsor, D'Addario Woodwinds. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy today's conversation. Sanding, shaping, balancing. For centuries, mastering your instrument meant mastering these crafts too. But now, D'Addario is refining craftsmanship for the 21st century by refining their reeds and mouthpieces with the world's most innovative techniques, so you can spend less time sanding, shaping, and balancing, and more time perfecting your own craft. To learn more about the new era of craftsmanship from D'Addario Woodwinds, visit d'addario.com/woodwinds. So today I want to talk, of course, about the ESM mouthpieces and the Uebel Clarinets. But let's start with the clarinets. Would you tell me a little bit about their sort of history and where they're made and what materials they're using?
Sure. History, it's an old company. This current company was founded in 1936, but it's much older. It goes back to the invention of the clarinet, actually. The current company, I would say, in its modern form is only 10, 15 years old, development included, heavily based on the old models, but it's completely reinvented, I would say. What I like about it is, of course, the German craftsmanship, but also the thorough wood selection. I'm very into wood. As an instrument maker, we both, Victoria and I, are instrument makers. We look at all the single parts as well, not only at the end result. And wood selection is probably among the most thorough ones in the market. It's H-tone wood, 5 to 7 years. It's heavy silver plating on nickel silver keys. It's, everything is more, I would say, durable, better thought of than most other brands, in my opinion.
So what does it mean to go into, could you go into a little detail about the selection process of the wood? Like, what are you looking for or not looking for in a good piece of wood?
A few things. First, of course, wood density. Where does the wood come from? Is it well pre-selected? Is the drying process really slow enough? And then from model to model, you start with the classic, which is the currently lowest model. The wood gets denser and without knots. The grain direction is very, very straight. The higher you come up to, let's say, the superior is a perfectly hand-selected wood that actually gets knocked to listen to it and to make sure that after the center bore is drilled, that wood grain direction is perfect, that you don't find flaws in it, things like that.
Wow.
And as well that the bottom part and that the joints have a similar wood structure to have an even sound.
Yeah, actually the superior and preference get matched. They upper and lower body joint get matched regarding wood density, wood weight, and grain direction, which I find awesome.
Wow, yeah. Does the you mentioned the drying process. Would you walk me through the drying process for Uebel clarinets?
Yeah, well, it's quite simple. You
take time.
You cut the tree. You cut your blanks to a size where you later can use them. You seal the end with a sort of a wax, and then you throw something waterproof over it and let it dry in a normal moisture environment. After that, you just store them as long as necessary until you measure a certain moisture content inside the wood, and then you can start to drill the center bore. After that, the wood should rest again, and it will up to 2 years, so that it can recover from that massive intrusion in its life.
So of course we all laugh, but because drying does seem like such an obvious thing, but most manufacturers, or many I would say, are now kiln drying their instruments, I believe.
Yeah.
So
that was why I was laughing.
Yeah.
Other manufacturers, from the tree to the clarinet, 5 weeks, or even shorter. And wood does have to get used to its new, purpose. Mm-hmm. And many clarinets, even the best made clarinets, will crack, warp, or shift and move when exposed to other temperatures, other humidity levels. And you can avoid that if you dry your tone wood thoroughly and slowly.
The granadilla has very wide fibers and has lots of resin. Mm-hmm. And once you kiln dry the resin shrinks to little gems inside, which means there are openings in the hole in the wood. And if once you drill the center bore, you see inside the bore a rough surface, because you open those chambers where resin was before, and it is prone to collect dust, moisture, and it changes the structure of the wood as a whole. And if you dry it properly, the resin stays in place. You drill the center bore, and the resin melts during that process, which makes it very dangerous to drill it because it gets warm. But it melts, and it adds a layer of its own protection inside the wood. So if you look into the bore of a Uebel clarinet, do yourself the favor and look at it, and you're going to see a shiny, even, smooth surface, which is
almost polished.
Yeah, like polished, but there is no such thing like polishing. It is a natural process when you dry the wood carefully.
So Maryanne and I were just talking about the different models. So it starts with the classic, that's sort of the basic one, right? And then I believe the advantage, the preference, and the superior. So would you walk us through kind of the differences between these models and who might be interested in each one? Or
Well, as I pointed out earlier, it's every single instrument has a slightly different bore, of course, wood selection, but the sound idea behind the instruments are very different. Mm-hmm. The preference, for example, stands out like none of the others. It's a very, very different sound idea. It's not as dark and as German, I would say, than as the others. but rather vivid, sparkly, with a much lighter tone, and that makes it a perfect choice. And actually, we sell it very often to klezmer players or players who tend to play more modern or contemporary music.
Jazz.
Yeah, jazz players.
It is very responsive, so you can. It's a perfect play partner, and it has not too much resistance, so it is very easy to have fun with it.
Paul Navidad, for example, is our most recent Uebel artist, and he decided for the preference because he plays a lot of jazz and Dixie, and he loved the sparkle in the tone of the preference. Very unlike the Superior. The Superior is the instrument you want to play if you're in a symphony orchestra or play chamber music, because it can do both. It can open very much. You can have a very strong tone with beautiful over and undertones, but it can be also very, very subtle. But it will always sound romantic, German, dark and rich.
And it's a very cultivated tone in comparison to the preference, which is more like. The one professor said to me, didn't attend the finishing school.
So it sounds like there's lots of different choices for people to choose within the Uebel line, which is great for people interested in new instruments.
Yes. The preference is not available as an A currently. The Superior E flat came first, and so that is available now as well. And as you can see, we go through the single models step by step and develop and develop and develop. And the E flat is the youngest sibling of the entire line.
And not to forget the bass.
Yes. Yeah. As well.
Exactly. The Superior is easily recognizable. Always, because it has a resonance vent hole in the bell. So that is always very easy to separate from the others.
I'd like to also add that it's interesting to note how the course of history of clarinet makers have changed the way we perceive and play today. Mm-hmm. As far back as 1780, there was a clarinet maker by the name of Roberti, born in Paris, actually living in the Bordeaux region. And he started with a simple 5-key clarinet with a very main bore of 14.6. Most of the French bores that I've played with have a smaller bore around the 14.7 or 9. But it's refreshing to note that the German makers are all around 15 point. And that includes Ostensteiner, Albert, Euler, Uebel, and Wurlitzer. Which I really love that larger bore. It just adds to the warmth and depth and the power that I could obtain. The other thing I like about playing a larger bored instrument is that it's helped me in so many ways to change the resonance and the color of my phrasing and the lines. I don't have to make a lot of adjustments, especially in the upper register in that persnickety F sharp, which is always so stuffy and hard to control. In the Superior and actually the Classic as well, it just comes out very beautifully clean, and it's very refreshing to note that you can play pretty much in anything and just have a good solid feeling that that's a German clarinet and it's going to produce its results all the time. Mm-hmm. That's really fantastic. And I've had students, as you well know, have purchased your Uebel clarinets, and they're all just extremely happy with them.
That's wonderful.
I'm so happy to hear that.
Are they all, the whole model line, are they all the larger bore idea then?
They follow the larger bore idea, even though I must say it's a hybrid bore. Mm-hmm. It's not a pure German bore. It works with, it's. I'm a trumpeter, and when someone asks me, what do you play a large bore trumpet? And I said, well, that's a very generalizing statement because, of course, your slide shape, your exit bore size, your bell shape, everything plays a major role in that. And if when Maryanne says the larger bore, she also means, of course, thicker walls. You have the sheer mass of wood that has to be moved in a German clarinet is more than in a French clarinet. Mm-hmm. And of course, tonal positioning. If you work with a larger bore, Well, you face an entirely different set of problems than with a French bore clarinet.
I was just going to say that is so true, Andreas. The thing that I like about the Uebels is the key work and how it's set on the body of the instrument. The key work is up front, and the like, for example, the left pinky FC key is set more comfortably on the Uebels than on the French systems, where you have to kind of reach. And for younger players, that the lower setup is a lot easier for their young hands to reach. Rather, you know what I'm saying? Rather than like some of the other clarinets where you have to have really control in your left hand to get those notes to speak.
Yeah, ergonomics are very important to us and Uebel, and you see that with the bass clarinet, the Imperia. It's one of the rare instruments where people with small hands and especially female players feel very comfortable on.
For younger players, not yet having larger hands.
Yeah.
Very comfortable. You don't have to stretch your fingers, so you don't get hurt over time, which is definitely a problem with a lot of bass clarinets, and we heard a lot of compliments about being very comfortable.
Yeah.
Well, I've had the chance, thanks to you guys, to try the classic model now quite extensively. I've had it for a couple of months, and I don't know if I'll be getting it back to you because I actually like it so much. We'll have to see about that. But anyways, the one thing I do have to say is that I do love it. I love how it plays and how it feels, and I find it is quite versatile. I'm saddened to hear there's no matching A, to be honest, but I guess that's the advantage of the advantage. Is like maybe I'll have to adjust my preference. But what was I going to say? Oh yes, I do find that the keywork is slightly different to what I'm used to, having played buffets for so long. What kind of adjustment period would an average person have switching over to a new instrument as far as the bore and?
I think that's a question Maryanne can answer best.
Yeah. How long did it take you? What was it like?
Oh gosh,
She experienced that firsthand.
Someone who's been there.
Well, after playing buffets, as I said, all my life, the transition, I'm going to be honest with you, was not a smooth one for me. It did take me some time to make the adjustments on my equipment, my mouthpieces. I was playing on totally different setup on my buffets, and I wasn't aware of the fact of the bigger bore and all the details that went into the making of the Uebel clarinet. And after doing several months of research, I've come up with the Blue Heaven mouthpiece, which is just the perfect fit for me. Really, I mean, with the baffle, the blue, we can talk about that, the baffle being a little bit more user-friendly for the larger board instrument, and a little bit less persnickety, if you will, on reed adjustment. And that's really what it really is all about. And the being able to play in tune.
One of the things that's true, we want to talk about the different barrels that are available from Uebel. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, yes. When I got my Uebels, I was surprised that there was a 65 and 64. And
me too, actually. I noticed they were shorter than I expected.
Yeah. And I was like, well, what's up with you guys, But after playing the 65s and with a larger bore, I can understand why that analogy has come into play.
Oh, she says...
Oh, 60.
60.
Oh, okay.
They're showing us on the screen right now a barrel in a little baggie that I guess is being sent out to Maryanne here.
Yeah, but after getting used to the Blue Heavens, I was playing on Backuns, I have to admit, and that was causing a little discrepancy of pitch. But
So here's a question about that, because one of the things that's sorry to interrupt.
It's okay.
With the people love to accessorize their clarinets nowadays. And most clarinets out here are, French system type buffets and stuff. Do you find you're able to sort of accessorize your instrument, or do you have to get custom made accessories for that bore? I have a feeling it would need to have a different.
Well, no, I think it's all about weight. It's all about weight and balance, and I think Andreas and Victoria would agree with me.
Yes,
Many years ago, as I had told Sean, I played on a Vandor and A1 crystal, and I've played the Palmericos, and Backun has come out with a crystal mouthpiece. They're too heavy for the Uebel clarinet. too much weight. It's overpowering. And when you have, it's actually imbalancing the playing structure. So the synthetic crystal has been the perfect solution for that, because it sort of puts everything back on a plane balance, where the dimensions of the old world class of the crystal mouthpieces is still prevalent in the synthetic crystal, but it's new and improved. It's upgraded.
We experienced a lot of players being surprised about the 64 and 65 barrels, asking us for 66. And I want to say that almost everybody, after a month or two, canceled the order for the 66 barrels.
Exactly.
Because it is a matter of a match for the clarinet, and the clarinet is designed to being played with a 64 and 66. Of course, there's a 64 and 65. Of course, there's more available. There's 63 up to 67. But after a while, especially for players who are switching from Buffet or other brands, they are used to compensate and to play their old setup, and it takes them a while to get used to relax and simply play, and don't engage yourself in compensating. And then you find out that the barrels they come with are thoughtfully selected. And to say a word about the Schreiber mouthpieces, the ESM Schreiber mouthpieces, it might be such a good fit because it is as well a German brand used to more German built French clarinets. So they know their market and their products being mostly played, and so they, of course, provide mouthpieces of a huge variety of tip openings and facings and everything, but for the idea of a German-made French clarinet.
So this would be a good time to segue into kind of a quick chat about the mouthpieces. Maryanne's been quite fond of using this new brand of mouthpiece called ESM, and they have a couple models, and one of them is sort of a synthetic crystal, I believe has little metal flecks inside, and also a metal tenon ring. Would you tell us a bit about sort of these features and why they become benefits?
First, let me say that Ernst Schreiber is not a new company.
Sorry, I mean the mouthpieces. Isn't this Blue Heaven rather?
Yeah, it's newer.
It's newer in the American market. It's
really,
actually,
this concept has been around. This synthetic crystal has been around for longer than I think. Then
yeah, they are.
Are we talking about the same mouthpiece? This is the Blue.
Yeah, the Blue
Yes.
ESM.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. They're available in the US for 3 years only. Actually, Maryanne and we met at the Clarinet Fest in Baton Rouge 3 years ago.
Seems pretty new to me. 3 years.
That was the first time that was the debut for the Blue mouthpieces in the US. But the Germans had them in stock quite a bit longer. And this kind of crystal synthetic material with aluminum particles embedded the idea is older. So the company itself is 40-ish years old, and Ernst Schreiber developed very interesting ideas regarding changes to the mouthpiece. He experimented with materials, thus also the metal ring, the one you mentioned. It helps you to focus. It actually, if you imagine, you have your mouthpiece and then a cork is between your mouthpiece and your barrel. And cork is a material that actually muffles. It's not a very good transition for your sound waves and your vibration to get into your barrel. So what he did is he tried to focus those vibrations. And the metal ring, also the aluminum particles embedded in the acrylic compound, they give you more control over your tone, help to focus, and give your the core of your sound more force, more power. Not necessarily sound-wise, but it's really more focused. We have many players who want it without because they are more used to the classical idea of small production with a softer core, more under and overtones. The metal connector focuses on overtones, and thus it sounds a little lighter, but it gives you more control.
So
First, when I saw those flakes first, those aluminum particles, I thought, please, not another gimmick. We don't need more gimmicks. We need more science. And then I must apologize.
We have certain models in both alternatives available in the solid black without the metal embedded, and as well with and without metal ring. And players played them against each other, same tip opening, same facing, and the difference is remarkable. So the flakes are not
just a gimmick. What can I say? From day one on, it became our bestseller. Really. It's a remarkable product.
So that's the model you prefer, Maryanne, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Some asked us already if they are available as well in black, so that they are not so outstanding.
I was just about to ask this. Why couldn't they put the flakes in the other material?
They technically could. I think they should be able to, but well, it is blue.
You can call that one like the Starry Night or something like that. You'd probably see the little flecks in the rubber, right, or the material. So these mouthpieces, we mentioned. I think I said the brand was new. I meant the product was new. These products are relatively new. So they're almost transparent. Like for those who haven't seen them, they're really quite something. I don't think there's anything else quite like them. I'll put some pictures up in the show notes. What do you love about them, Maryanne, and the way they play and perform for you?
Oh, yes. Well, with a ring, in the I have the MK series. So I have both. I have the Las Dudas and the MK series. For classical playing in chamber, there's nothing comparable. I mean, it's just, that is the top of the line. It's easy to produce sound, and with the 65 barrel, which I'm using now, I can achieve the softest inflections of, for example, the second movement of the Poulenc, which I'll play for you a little later, and the if you want to go into the extreme altissimo register, those C4s pop out like there's no tomorrow, evenly, cleanly, and in tune, and it's wonderful. I think I'm no expert on what goes into the making of it, but there seems to be a heavy bottom balance between the mouthpiece and the barrel and the rest of the instrument. The mouthpiece, the Blue Heavens don't just sit on the mouthpiece; they interact with the function of the wood and the vibration and everything to bind it all together to make it an object that you have in your hands and you blow into something that you are in control of.
Exactly. I totally agree.
Are these mouthpieces all meant for more German-style clarinets, or can someone use them with a French clarinet as well?
You can use them, of course. And we have lots of players loving them, regardless of what brand clarinet they are playing or what material clarinet they are playing. It is a matter of finding the mouthpiece which suits you best and your needs, which is the perfect fit for your setup and your embouchure and your reed and your mood. So I'm all for having a variety of mouthpieces available, depending on what kind of music you're going to play or what mood you are and how you interpret the music today. So it is good to have a variety, and it's definitely worth to try them. And we are sending out trials as well with different models, with different sizes, so that the player can find the perfect match for his setup and his music.
I would say on average we sell more Schreiber mouthpieces to buffet and Selmer players than to Uebel players.
It's naturally.
Yeah. I'd also like to add that with the ESMs, well, especially the MK, I need a reed with a thick vamp and a very vibrant tip. So I do a lot of sanding and manipulating of the cane to get that to seal on the mouthpiece. I believe in putting a balanced reed on a balanced mouthpiece. A lot of players aren't aware of that. They'll just take a reed out of the box and they'll put it on, oh, this doesn't work, and why, and I'm unhappy. It always takes a little bit of ingenuity and time to shape the reed so it will be balanced, because the MK is a little bit more closed face.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It's the smallest one.
It's got a deeper baffle. Is that correct, Andreas?
Yes, that is also correct. You are obviously all about acceleration of your sound waves, which makes total sense, because if you can't get the Uebels to resonate immediately, you can't control all the subtleties you need as a professional artist. It's impossible. Thus, you naturally pay more attention to those details. And that's also the reason why you feel so comfortable on the Schreiber mouthpiece. Because if you have the right reed, you have the perfect acceleration of your sound waves inside your mouthpiece, and it gets transferred perfectly to the barrel and your instrument. And since your clarinet has thicker walls and a wider bore, that's exactly what you need, of course.
Regarding the manipulation of reeds, the reed geek might be somebody you want to mention.
Yeah, I'd love to have him on the show, actually. I briefly touched on his product when I was in Chicago. He's featured in that little video I did when I was down there. I can't remember his name right now.
He has a great tool to manipulate reeds, and he has a lot of knowledge about it. He's very into that, and
in my opinion, if you have his little reed geek tool, you need nothing else. It's really perfect to fine tune your reeds. But that's a different topic.
Well, yeah, thank you guys for coming on today and for letting me try the classic clarinet, and for sharing some of the details about the instruments and the mouthpiece. If people are interested in trying these instruments and products, where can they do that, and how can they find you online?
Easiest way is to contact us via our website. Maybe you can put something in your...
Yeah, I'll throw up some links to the show notes, yeah.
Yeah, to the Uebel website or ESM US website, and we're gonna handle a trial so that you have the chance to try and to compare and play your clarinet you're choosing against other brands or however, or get it checked with the teacher, professor, however. And we are very cooperative because we are of the opinion that choosing and trying is very, very important.
Especially since Uebel is an old brand in Europe and in Asia maybe, but it's only their third year in the United States. So we are usually very generous with trial periods, etc., because we want people to get used to our product.
As well, educator shows are a good address to check if we are there. We have event calendars on our website. So check it out where we're going to be next, or we are with dealers or with universities. Wherever we are invited, we're going to show up with instruments to get them to be tried.
Thanks for listening to the Clarinet podcast. For free content updates, coupons, and a chance to win giveaways mentioned on the show, please be sure to enter your email address at clarinet.com/subscribe. The podcast is brought to you in part by the generous support of its listeners. If you'd like to learn how you can help out, please see clarinet.com/support. Today's episode was brought to you by D'Addario Woodwinds. Sanding, shaping, balancing. For centuries, mastering your instrument meant mastering these crafts too. But now, D'Addario is refining craftsmanship for the 21st century by refining their reeds and mouthpieces with the world's most innovative techniques, so you can spend less time sanding, shaping, and balancing, and more time perfecting your own craft. To learn more about the new era of craftsmanship from D'Addario Woodwinds, visit D'Addario.com/woodwinds.